We got ourselves a live stream. Okay. I would have titled everything today Red Alert, but everybody else uses that term, so I didn't use it. But let me tell you something. This is a very, very, very serious discussion of what's going on in Iran and how it fits prophecy. Excellent fit. Excellent fit. Okay? And I'm going to get you through it. Okay? It's about Iran. And they're already ready to shut the Persian Gulf through the Straits of Hormuz. In other words, they could do it in, I don't know, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour. Everything's in place. I'm going to run it all down for you. And we're going to talk about the implications. The Houthis are ready to shut the Red Sea. The oil that Iran's going to shut off amounts to 20 to 25% of the worldwide oil. So let's go with the high figure because that's probably more right, 25%. And the Houthis can shut down 8.5% by closing the Red Sea, which they've done several times. They just make it scary for the ships to want to go through there. So that's 33.5% or 1/3 of the oil not moving. Now, can they move the oil around the bottom of Africa and bypass the Red Sea? Yes. What will that do? Add 2 weeks transit time. So the ship is tied up for 2 weeks. Ka-ching, ka-ching. The oil is tied up for 2 weeks. Ka-ching, ka-ching. You got to pay the crew for 2 weeks more. Ka-ching, ka-ching. Oil prices go up. All right. Just the Persian Gulf being closed, Goldman Sachs, who is referred to as Goldie in Wall Street, Goldie says that the closure of just the Persian Gulf can bring oil to $700 a barrel. They are conservative, badly conservative. I see them do forecasts on gold, and they're out and left. They're just way too low. Gold's already surpassed what they're saying was going to happen, the end of 2026. So their $700 figure is probably conservative. They don't want to scare the daylights out of everybody. But I'm saying this to you, that when you add in the Persian Gulf and use the higher figure, or not even use the higher figure, if you don't use the higher figure, you're shutting 28.5% of the oil. That's enough. I mean, you're probably going to go over $1,000 a barrel. You're going to go fill your car up. If it's empty, you're going to drop $1,200 to fill your car up. Do you understand why I said global economic collapse? All right, so we'll get into it. It was raining again this morning, and it's going to be, this is in Israel. I'm in the Galilee, lived here for many, many years. It's going to rain a little bit in the morning. I think it may have finished. Then we don't have any more rain till Monday, so that'd be kind of nice. All right, let me look at the live stream. We'll get into it, guys. This is your Jeremiah 49 with Edom and Iran coming right in your face. But it's also wrecking the nations, and it's going to weaken America. Wait till I explain more to you. All right. Let us look at the live stream and see what we got. it's always handy if we got sound and picture. Makes for a better live stream usually. I'm kidding. And see what we got. What do we got? I've got moderators. Thank you, moderators. We got sound and picture. Makes for a better live. What do we got? All right, I'm going to put a post up in the chat, and that is going to take seconds. Okay, I'll get going. Give people a chance to come in. All right, I'm going to put a post up in the chat, and that is going to take seconds. Okay, I'll get going. Give people a chance to come in. Let me proofread it. All right. Why is this so difficult to post? I got it. All right. I got that up. All right. Let me get out of here. Being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, let's do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right, kids. So I'll be filling you in as we move and go through this. Get my notes out, and we'll just jump right in. I didn't really get a chance to do my social media scouring the local news in Israel, but I don't think anything really happened. So I can do that in the afternoon. In Israel, we're on Thursday, January 29 at 8:17 in the morning. Some people think this is highly relevant, so I'll give it to you, okay? A U.S. Air Force RC 135V Victor, called a rivet joint, has taken off from RAF Mildenhall, I believe that would be Great Britain, and is headed towards the Middle East. A rivet joint plane provides war theater level signals intelligence. One of the key giveaways before we had the June war with Iran, June 2025, 12-day war, it operated along the Iranian border for around 10 days. So they're getting this puppy back in the theater. I don't think they have a whole lot of these, but it's something that the Iranians probably know precious little about. It's a pretty advanced puppy dog there. What this thing does is it identifies the enemy's air defenses. And why would they want to do that? To destroy them. To locate and track sources of radio emissions, radio signals, in all possible ranges. So it also intercepts command post communications. It probably runs, de-encryption too. This thing works a lot with the AWACS. So this is something that seems to just come out of storage when you're ready to start pulling triggers. Now, I don't want you guys to think I'm doing fear porn. I'm not. I'm doing real world. I also want you to know that what I'm going to be doing during this broadcast is taking the so-called fear porn and lining it up with Bible prophecy out of the book of Jeremiah, chapter 49, pertaining to Yemen and Iran, and also Iraq, and possible Syria. All right? And we got a beautiful fit. That was my wife's angel food cake she made for me. Yesterday, I had a broken, I thought maybe I had a broken tooth a while ago. A piece fell off or something, right? Yesterday, I was eating popcorn, this Amish popcorn. It's pretty good. And a hard kernel that didn't pop. Well, what happened is I made the popcorn and I went maybe 10, 15 seconds too long. And it burned it all. So my wife's yelling, "We got the stink in the house from the burnt popcorn." And she was right. I went outside, put it in the garbage outside. I made another one. And I pulled it out earlier than I usually do. So it had kernels in there. So I bit down and I got a real uncooked kernel. And it broke what the rest of my tooth was. And then I realized it wasn't the rest of my tooth. It was the rest of a crown that had already broken. Because I couldn't imagine how the thing could be my tooth, So then I dug into it. And, it wasn't. It was the crown. So I got a broken crown. All right. Thing went close to 30 years. Might have hit 30 years or almost 30 years. Almost, not quite. All right. This is where we go. I'm trying to talk other things to keep people to get the fear porn level down. Okay. All things work to good for those who love the Lord, including wars with Iran and Yemen and Iraq and Syria. But if you're not a believer, I suggest you become one. All things work to good for those who love the Lord, not for those who love sin or don't care about the Lord or love the devil and, stuff like that. The Iranian parliament back in June 2025, I think this was a day or two after the war was over. I think that it was June 24 or 25. Maybe the war was still going the last day or something in last year, June 2025, but it could have been June 24th and or 25th in the year 2025. Okay. Members of Iran parliament, which is sort of a joke, approved support for a proposal, passed it, to close the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf is kind of like this. This is up here near Kuwait, let's say, or something. So it has one way out, and that one way out has a pincher point called the Straits of Hormuz. Okay? And when you get out of the Straits of Hormuz, you're around the UAE and Oman, and you get into the Sea of Oman, and then if you keep going, you hit the Indian Ocean, and then you'll see Diego Garcia, if that helps you understand the lay of the land. All right? It's this pincher point that Iran is focusing on because you have to pass through it to get in and out of the Persian Gulf. The states that are affected by a closure of the Persian Gulf is the entire Middle East. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. Okay, now Yemen and Iraq are friends with Iran. All right. Jordan does not export oil. They keep it for their own selves. Okay. Oman exports oil, but it's not a powerhouse. Okay. Not much, you know. All right. Let me keep going. So the supreme leader of Iran, the Shmuckmani, can we call him Shmuckmani instead of Khomeini? Shmuckmaniac, maybe. How about that? Ayatollah Shmuckmaniac. I like that. Needs to approve the closure of the Persian Gulf via the Straits of Hormuz. So you're not closing the Straits of Hormuz, you're closing the Persian Gulf. The Straits of Hormuz is the pincher point you're using to affect this. Now, if Trump wins this battle, he'll obviously call it, he won't call it the Persian Gulf anymore. What do you think he'll call it? Well, he's not going to call it the Mexican Gulf. Hint, hint. He'll call it the American Gulf. I crack up laughing if he does it. All right. What makes... Okay, so the parliament itself in Iran can't, go out and pull a move like this. They approve it. Now, what goes on here is Ayatollah Shmuckmani uses the parliament as something to make the world think that Shmuckmani is actually running something resembling a democracy. The protesters in Iran estimate 80,000 are dead. The more realistic figure I'm picking up is 43,000. So if you combine the two, it's probably 50, 60,000, 60,000 maybe. It's a pretty high number. Maybe it's only 43,000, but the number's been climbing still, and that's a substantial massacre. That's like a war. 40, 50, 60, or even 80,000 is like a war. It's a civil war. He's killing his opposition. These guys are so hard-hearted that, they got ice in their veins and they got a heart that's so hard when they go through a metal detector, it sounds off as if it's steel. They're so sick. They're people after Satan's own heart, is what they are. And don't ever believe that Ayatollah Shmukamani is a Muslim. He's as much as a Muslim as Santa Claus is real. He's no freaking Muslim. He's a Satan bot. You think he believes that crap? Come on. He's got 250 billion. The big argument that this brand of Mohammedanism purports is they're against the other countries in the region, like Kuwait and Bahrain and Qatar and UAE and Saudi and Jordan, because they have dictators. They call the dictators conveniently kings, but or they call them an emir. It's still a dictator. And they believe the Quran teaches that the wealth should be distributed fairly to the people, the poor people, right? Well, no Satan bot worth his horns is going to ever give money to poor people, okay? All right? So we're told Ayatollah Shmukamani has $250 billion. That's not a Muslim. That's a Satan bot. Okay. All right. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most important transit points, with roughly 20 to 25% of global oil and LNG exports. I did not even get into the LNG, liquid natural gas, propane, like kind of stuff, right? They pass through it daily, millions of barrels, So you're only going to get, with the Houthis, which already said repeatedly they're joining in the war with with Iran if there's a war. They've come out publicly and said it in recent days. So they're in. What are they going to do? Well, they're not going to get in rowboats and row over to Washington, D.C. They're going to close the Red Sea. They figure they're going to make the world so uncomfortable and Trump so uncomfortable, the pressure on Trump will be so intense that he'll leave Iran alone. Then Iran could sit down with him and make some sort of deal like, oh, we won't do nuclear stuff, but you're not inspecting us. Hardy har har. And we'll continue to make as many ballistic missiles with whatever ranges and warheads we want. And by the way, Trump released us from all sanctions and returned all our money. That's what Iran wants. Okay. America wants an end to all their nuclear aspirations. America wants an end to supporting their proxies, which would be Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, plus a huge amount, maybe 100,000 or 200,000 Iranian-backed militias running around in Iraq and Syria. That number could even be slightly higher, maybe 250,000, or it might only be 70,000 or 100,000, but it's a lot. So in other words, Iran has to go back to being a peaceful country, and it's not going to stop there. Trump's going to want regime change. It's not going to stop. It's going to keep getting. So, what we're picking up today in the reports and the news is that Iran declined. But it doesn't mean Iran ever sat down with them either. They say they never negotiated or something. I don't. But anyway, there's no deal. The two things in the news are like this: Iran is saying we never had a negotiation with them, so there is no deal. And the other people are saying there was negotiations and it was rejected, so there's no deal. Now, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are the only producers in this Middle East region with infrastructure to bypass the Straits of Hormuz. But it's not a reliable system. It could easily be destroyed, and I will explain. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have pipelines where they can move some oil from one part to another, but it's not much. It's a pittance, okay? And the pipelines could easily be blown up. What is a pipe? It's a big pipe. Maybe it's 1 or 2 inches thick. Any substantial missile will break it up. They got to immediately shut it off because there's going to be an oil catastrophe as the oil in the pipeline starts flooding out. Goldman Sachs derivative experts were adamant if Hormuz is blocked before or during a full-scale naval war only he's talking about, in the Gulf, oil may reach $700 a barrel. Now, he's not talking about the Red Sea closure, stuff like that, and they are conservative. Now, I've been telling you oil will hit 200, 300. Other people were saying this is going back maybe 3 months. Other people that are more expert in oil than I am, I'm no expert, were saying 500. I was having trouble choking on 500. 500 a barrel means a gas tank is costing you $600. How many people could tank up for $600? People could do it. They have to, pinch their budget, and they maybe have to drag a tank of gas out for a month. I think electric cars would fare much better. Electricity will go up, but probably not that bad. All right. You're going to see at price levels of $500 to $1,000 a barrel, you're going to see price increases on items you buy in the store, like per item, that are probably going to get up to about $1 an item. There's electronics and heating and oil being used on machinery that harvests crops and all kinds of things. It's just amazing okay. So then you got the tractors and all the reapers and all that equipment. Then you got it on trucks, and then trucks it's going to packaging plants that are burning oil by heating and lighting and electricity and refrigeration. Then it's going on more trucks or put in containers, and the containers are being put on trucks or trains. And it could be getting shipped on trains, which use oil, or it could be getting shipped on trucks. It could be getting put on ships crossing oceans. They burn a gallon of gas every few feet. And then it goes to distribution points, and then it goes into stores. Then you buy it, you drive to the store with your car to buy it or bring it home. Well, the store delivers it to you on their truck. There's so much transportation being done. And now you're running around, for the longest time, oil is running at $60 a barrel. And you take that up by 10 or 15 times, you're going to be probably spending about $1, maybe 50 cents, maybe 75 cents on every item you buy. So when you go to the store and load up for the week, you're probably buying 25, 35 items, something like that. So your gas for the car's going up, your food bill's going to go up. Shocking. It'll be shocking, okay? And your home heating is going to go up. Your electricity is probably going to go up. Your LNG is going to go up, and that's how most of you are getting your hot water. Everything else you buy is going to be going up. Carpet, clothing, paint, insulation, lawnmower, a tire, a hat, a baseball bat, anything. Airplane tickets are going to kill you. I mean, when things are reasonably, you're going to get a ticket, let's say, from a round tripper from Kennedy to Ben Gurion in Israel, you'll pay about $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, something like that for a coach. Or you'll be paying $3,000 probably. Maybe more. Cruise ships are going to do so bad, they're just going to probably park them. Let me break that down and show you why they would park a cruise ship. Big cruise ships are probably in reality getting 5 feet a gallon. Okay? But everything's not a huge cruise ship. Let's just go with, well, let's ask AI how. Okay. How many feet does a cruise ship travel before it burns up 1 gallon of fuel? This, of course, is a rough question for AI, so it's digging. You'll come up with it. It's going to vary on the size of the boat, but we'll come up with, and the speed, but so I was a little bit, I think when I said that 5 feet, I was thinking of a very, very, very big cruise ship. So they're saying it's 40 to 70 feet. So let's go 50 feet. Okay. So every 50 feet, you're burning a gallon. Now, I happen to know that typical cruises in the Caribbean, and this is probably pretty typical around the place, for a 1 week cruise, you're covering about 7,000 miles. All right. So 7,000 miles times 5,200 feet per mile as a rough. That's 36 million feet. Well, let's divide that by 50. That's 728,000 gallons of gas. Okay. You saw the math. I figure a 1 week cruise on a cruise ship covers about 7,000 miles over the week. Does this make sense to you? I'm going to just check it with AI. Maybe. Okay, it's given me a different idea by calculating the speed and the hours of travel. All right, maybe I had this wrong. I could have. It's telling me that it's going to travel about 360 miles. Okay. So since we're in rough cut here, we'll since I was going about 7 down, we'll cut it in half. Okay. So we'll divide that figure by 2. And let's start over. 728,000. $728,000 divided by 2 equals 364,000. Now, that's how many gallons they use. Now, let's check that with AI just to make sure. So I asked it if a cruise ship could hold 400,000 gallons of fuel, and it gave me an immediate answer. It said, yes, absolutely can hold 400,000 gallons of fuel, and many hold much more. Okay, so there we go. So you're at 364,000 gallons of fuel burned for this trip. Okay. It's actually a little more because this was calculated on running, and they run the generators when the boat is stationary, which burns gas. So it's probably more prudent because they're running the generators 24/7 to call it 400,000. Okay, but we'll go with this figure. It doesn't matter. And let's say that gasoline goes up. Let's just say it goes up an extra $6 a gallon, which is rather conservative. So they're spending an extra $2.1 million on the cruise. Okay. Now, I was a little conservative. It's probably, if it gets higher, it could be as much as they're spending $3 million or $3.25 million on the cruise. Okay. So let's just go with, I don't know. We can use the cheap number, 2.1 million. Okay. All right. Now, ships of Tarshish. That's why we're worried about this. Ships of Tarshish. That's transportation to Israel in the next great Exodus. Okay. So I have an ulterior motive, of course. I'm not just sitting here playing, Dixie. Way down south in the land of the cotton. Okay. So, there's cruise ships that got 5,500 passengers. That's very high. Some have 1,500. I don't know. Let's say 3,000, just for a round figure. Some have 900. Let's just, I don't know. Maybe that's too high, but we'll try 3,000. So 2.1 million. That's the extra dollars they're spending on just fuel on this cruise. And then we divide that by 3,000. And we get an extra cost per person. And it failed me. Let's try it again. 2.1 divided by 3,000. This is coming up wrong. $3,000 times 7,000. It's $700 a person is what it goes up. Okay. So if you got two people, which is normal, you're paying another $1,400 for the cruise, but not really. You're paying more. The price of all the food and the supplies on the ship has gone up. The price for your travel to and from the cruise has gone up a lot. Okay. Either you're driving or using an airplane, and that gone up. And your price for stuff during the cruise has gone up. Buying stuff, tours, whatever you're going to do. So if we use the 700 per person figure, we got 1,400. Remember the other things and everything else going up. The price of the cruise is going to go up more than 700 a person because they got to cover the extra food and supplies. So I would say the price of a cruise for two people is going to go up by $2,000. The way the cruise industries work, okay? So the way it looks today, if you're going to go take a nice, not a luxury cruise, a nice 1 week cruise for two people, you're going to probably, on average, because people get suites, people get inside cabins, balances, you're probably going to get a price of, now your price would be at least $4,400. You're probably going to be paying $6,000-7,000 for your cruise. At least 6, probably 7. I'd say 6,500, 7,000 is what it's going to cost you. So where does that leave things? Well, it means that the cruises are going to cut down the number of cruises they're running because they're not going to book them. Okay. What are they going to do with the people that already booked cruises 6 months out, a year out? Well, it depends how bad they want to stay in business. They could refund the money and not get sued. That's probably what they'll do. Just tell the people the cruise was canceled. Maybe give them a 25% discount on booking another cruise at the higher price or something. I don't know. So if you're dealing with a cruise company that has 10 ships, they're probably not going to be running them. They might run a couple of ships. They might run 2 or 3 ships at most. Or they might run all 10 ships, but only run them once every 6 or 8 weeks. But I doubt they're going to do that. I think they're going to do what they did with COVID. They're just going to park the ships. They'll keep a light crew on the ships. What's that mean? No, they usually run, depending on the size of the boat, it could be, as low as 600 workers to 1,800. Tremendous amount of those people are involved in food service and preparation, beverage service preparation, cleaning the cabins, entertainment, that sort of thing, okay? Working in the laundry to clean all the towels and all that. So the ones they're going to keep on the boat, I think by law, they're going to have to keep a captain on the boat, because if the boat's going to be operating, it's be running generators and stuff like that. So they'll probably have a captain with a captain's license. They'll have 3 or 4 other guys that are licensed for ship safety, like managing fire control, navigation, communications. They'll have guys working on the engine. Probably about, 10 guys there for the, even though the boat's not really going anywhere. And then they'll probably have another, maybe a total of 30 guys on top of that. And they'll be painting, cleaning, washing. They'll have 2 or 3 or 4 people there doing food preparation for everybody. They may, by law, have to have more. They might have to have 50 or 60, so they could demonstrate they could do fire control crews and stuff like that. It might be that high. And they'll just be constant repairers on the boat. Most of the boat will be shut down. There's very few people that'll be eating. They'll be eating in 2 rooms, one for the officers, one for the other guys. They'll have a small buffet. They'll have meals, that kind of thing. They'll be sleeping in crew quarters. They won't be sleeping in the cabins. The cabins will all be closed. They'll clean them before the crew goes home, and then they'll just close them. They won't run the air conditioners over there. They won't run the water there. The toilets will be shut. Not much of anything going on. And they'll have to have probably a team of 6 security guards to make sure the place stays. They'll have to have, 2 on at a shift or something to repel anybody that tries to come up and board the boat or something like that. If the boat's moored up at a pier, then they might need 6 security people every shift, because it's a danger. So that means the ships of Tarshish are going to stop. They're not going to be going anywhere. Cruising essentially is going to come to an end, but the ships will be used for us. Moving commercial goods is going to continue, but at a higher price. Air travel is going to fall apart. People aren't going to book the flights. It's going to be like COVID. They're going to park the aircraft and not run it. Nobody's going to be buying tickets. They'll run some flights, very few. Probably half their planes will be parked. Taxis, they're going to suffer. Ubers, they're going to suffer. Cities, counties, states, they're going to continue to try to run their buses. They'll bankrupt out eventually, but they'll keep trying to run their buses. What's going to happen to gold and silver? Well, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to buy a new car for a 1-ounce gold coin. Not a great car, not a Cadillac, but some kind of a nice car. It'll be that bad. But why are you going to buy a car? What are you going to do with it? More perspective, probably 2 or 3 gold coins, you buy a house. People are going to be thinking more or less in silver, though. Gold will just hit an insane level. And the buying and trading of gold for US dollars will not be relevant. What would happen to the dollar and the pound and the euro? Oh, that'd be a horrible condition. Disaster. What the governments will try to do in the beginning is subsidize fuel. They could pass laws or executive orders like Jimmy Carter did, where you weren't allowed to raise prices anymore. I was in the paper business when Carter was president, and I was in not writing paper or printing paper. It was food service disposables made out of paper predominantly. Paper cups, paper plates. Well, I was on a very, I was selling pallets of this stuff. I wasn't selling little packages of, running trucks, and I would get railroad cars to ship them in and stuff like that. It was big time. I had a 50,000 square foot warehouse. I was the manager of the place. So they, the prices for stuff was going up every couple of weeks. It was scary. So then Carter passed the law or an executive order that said you can't raise prices anymore. I don't know how well he did with that, but I can't remember. I think people complied. That was crazy inflation. But, I don't know what I was paying for gas. Let me think. Probably 50 cents a gallon or something like that. I never paid attention what I just go to the pump and fill up and pay the guy. It was always cheap. Never worried about it. It hit $1 around 1978 or 79. It was pretty cheap. I didn't care about what, it wasn't concerned with it. Living was easy back then, boy. You get a nice furnished apartment with a balcony and carpet and dishwasher and all all the stuff you needed, furnished for about $300 a month, maybe $225, $250 unfurnished. Okay. With swimming pools and a gym and everything, jacuzzis. That's what it costs. It was cheap. Same apartments in California today, probably $2,500. Many years later, I had a similar apartment in Florida, but it had an extra bedroom and no furniture. It was about, I don't know, $800 a month, 700, I think, 800 maybe. Okay, let's get into the mechanics of the war now. If you don't understand, what happens is people buy fuel as a commodity, like orange juice pulp, pork bellies, things like that, corn, wheat. All right. And they buy them, it's like for future delivery. You're buying an option to buy, let's say, 1,000 barrels of gasoline, and your option could run 2 weeks, a month, up to 6 months. And it has a strike price. Now, if it's at the strike price, you could execute the option and buy it at that price. So if it's, let's say, your strike price is $79 a barrel, when the option comes due, you could just say, I want it. Send me the gas. And they have to deliver it to you. And you only pay $79 a barrel, even though it might be selling for $900 a barrel. Okay, that's how it works. If they don't deliver it to you, then there's a lot of penalties. They get sued, and you get your money somehow. They have all that set up with contingencies. But if oil is selling for $100 a barrel and your strike price is $200 a barrel, you're not going to execute the option and you lost your money. If that helps you any. So companies frequently buy their oil like this, like Greyhound buses. They want to know they're always going to have gas. Okay? United Airlines, Delta, Carnival Cruise Lines, UPS, bus companies, trucking outfits, drayage companies is a trucking company. The railroads, they all want to know they're getting their fuel. Okay? So they buy out into the future. Without fuel, they're out of business. If you got a Chinese restaurant and you're out of fuel, are you out of business? No. You're not out of business. Why? If you got a shoe store, you're not out of business. Okay. So What about Amazon? Well, you better believe Amazon, Walmart, and those guys are buying all kinds of oil. Taxi companies are buying it. All kinds of people, guys. You know, it makes the world go round. That's how they travel. Everything moves with the oil. And if the oil is not enough, the LNG adds to it more because people use that for your hot water heaters, for many things, barbecue grills, all kinds of things. People run cars on LNG and other things. Okay, they cook with it. Practically everybody, not every. There's either you have an electric stove or it's running on LNG. Or you might have a solar stove. So there's no real getting around this. Okay, the pipelines they got could easily be destroyed, and it's just Saudi and the UAE, and it's just a pittance, and it's easy for Iran to destroy them. Just start missile attacking them, and that's it. Now, the experts say that America can stop Iran from closing the Persian Gulf, but they got to throw a massive amount of military equipment against it. And that could be the snare on America that causes the downfall of America. I'll quickly explain. America might have to bring 60 warships out here, okay? And another 400 or 500 aircraft or something like that, right? And then it leaves itself a lot more vulnerable. And that's the attack I've been telling you for years that China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran would want to do. Okay. Now wait till you hear what's going on in China. I didn't even tell you that one yet. Wait till you hear this. Maybe I should tell you about China now. I don't want to lose my train of thought. Let's stay where we're at. Okay. Uh, what Goldman Sachs did say that the high prices on oil, they use $700, would only be temporary, but they were very facetious because the entire global economy will collapse. Goldman Sachs, when you're talking about investment bankers, where are they at when you start, let's say, talking cars? Okay. Where is Goldman Sachs at, like an analogy? Well, Goldman Sachs is the Rolls Royce or the Bentley. Okay. Goldman Sachs is where the rich people go. Okay. I knew a guy, I believe he worked at Goldie years ago. I was in business with somebody who was his client. And Goldie, you work there and you're like a regular guy. And I don't know, today they'd probably start you at 150, 200. You wouldn't just get hired. If you got out of Harvard or Stanford with an MBA in finance and they liked the way you looked and talked and you were in the top 10% of your class, maybe 15%, probably 10%, they might give you a shot. And you work, they put you under a partner and you work for the partner a few years, like 3. And if the partner thinks you're ready, okay, then what happens is the partner recommends you to move up, and then you get some sort of senior status, and you do good there for a couple of years, and they make you a partner. Then you're a junior partner, a senior partner. But when you become a junior partner, you're making over $1 million a year. You know, a major partner might make 2 million a month, or 3 million a month, 4 million a month, 5 million. You know, big money, big money. Okay, they probably got people there making $100 million a year that are senior partners. This is the real thing. Okay, the Goldman Sachs is the cast me out. That's it. Okay. The blocking of the Straits of Hormuz would trigger the deterioration, or I'm sorry, the detonation of the $2 quadrillion derivative market. A $1 quadrillion is a trillion. A trillion is 1,000 billion, and a quadrillion is 1,000 trillion. It's almost hard to imagine that level of wealth. So what would happen is the trading would stop. They'd shut it down. It got so high, they would shut the trading down, and they would probably never open again. And people would lose all their money. You know, you don't want to have any stocks and bonds at all, or options or futures or any of that. You don't want any of that. The banks will close too. Forget people going and what not being able to go to work at gas prices like that. The place they go to work at is going to be out of business. So even if they want to go to work, there's no place to go. Their place is closed. Their factory or their store, whatever they work at, is gone. You can't survive this type of thing. See, this is what this idiot Satan did. He wanted the Israelite hating Muslims to be rich, so everybody went after the oil. It could have gone any number of ways. It could have went heavier on LNG, solar, many things, wind turbines, all sorts of things. Using rivers and streams to make energy. The government can't hold it together if you even get to 500 a barrel. They can't hold, because what is orange juice pulp going to sell for? Pork bellies, many things. Wood. During the past decade, the different Joint Chiefs of Staff in America have admitted that they do not have the military ability to keep the Straits of Hormuz open. It's the stupidity of depending on oil that they all put the world into. They're idiots. Satan's an idiot. Marco Rubio delivered the last warning that it's believed, I think he said that's his last warning to Iran. He's not warning them anymore. So why am I so high on Iran doing this with the Persian Gulf? Because they're already set up to do it. And let's just put it in baby talk to understand things. If Iran starts off by saying, okay, let's kill all the Trump soldiers in the Middle East and start attacking them in the Middle East, could they do that? Yeah, with drones, with missiles. What would happen? Trump will go nuts and start firing on them. That doesn't get them anywhere they really want to be, getting fired on with missiles and drones and bombs and who knows what else. They don't want that. So how can Iran get rid of Trump without a war? Well, they close the Persian Gulf. Why? Their thought is that Trump doesn't have the guts to attack them over them closing the Persian Gulf. Everybody who thinks Iran is right, raise your hand. I do. I don't think Trump got the guts. So Iran doesn't attack all the American military bases in the region. They don't attack the other oil-producing countries that are cooperating with America and Israel and all that. And all they do is shut the Persian Gulf, and that's it. Now, do you think Trump got the guts to take some of these destroyers and roll them into the Persian Gulf to have encounters with the Iranian ships? No. What ships are they going to have an encounter with? A submarine that they can't see or do anything about, or they're going to have an encounter with some of the 1,500 go-fast boats. Let's see how many go-fast boats Iran has today. That number's about 2 years old. Let's see what we can pick up. How many of these? Great. It's an Apple product, piece of junk. Okay. How many go-fast boats is it estimated that Iran has now? See, what AI is doing is searching the internet, but it goes about 100 times faster than I can. Probably more like 10,000 times. Okay, it came back. There's no simple way. I agree. It's not giving me. It's giving me a whole speech. I didn't tell it to shorten it. I might have to. Give me the very condensed version with the estimated figure as to how many go-fast boats Iran has. I didn't want to sit here and read it for 5 minutes. Now what? Hang on. I got a call from suspected spam. It's not giving me any accuracy. It's just saying, hundreds, thousands, I heard a couple of years ago it was 1,500. I think it's a lot more. So it doesn't have it can't give me a figure. It searched the internet and it can't come up with anything conclusive. So we don't know. We're back to we don't know. Look, even if it's 1,000, it's terribly dangerous. Okay. They have different renditions of these. They could go 50 feet to 70 feet or 80 feet. They're generally consumer boats that are converted. Some of them shoot torpedoes, some shoot anti-ship missiles, some have heavy guns riveted in on a stand. And the soldiers or the Navy guys on these boats could also bring with them shoulder-fired missiles, anti-ship missiles, shoulder-fired anti-tank missiles. Shoulder-fired is basically an anti-ship missile if you want it to be. They shoot those at, people. They can shoot them at a house, they can shoot them at a person, they can shoot them at a vehicle, anti-tank missiles. So, they're dangerous. Now, if you want to sink a destroyer and you send, let's be real, you send 8 or 10 at the destroyer, is the destroyer going to have its hands full? Oh, yeah, Will. Well, can't the destroyer just put a radar lock, and fire an anti-ship missile at a 50, 60-foot boat that's going to be 5 feet wide? No. Not that. Why? Because they're not going to sit there and drive at the destroyer in a straight line. They're going to zig and zag at random. Okay? And when they get within range, you're going to have 8 or 10 of them firing at the destroyer. So the destroyer is going to have to zig and zag. So if you got a destroyer zigging and zagging, going, at different time intervals and stuff, and you got the target vessels going, let's say 10 of them, zigging and zagging. Oh, so now you're going to tell me the American weapons are so good that the ships they're on can zig and zag and hit a small 50, 60, 70-foot boat that's also zigging and zagging. No, it might occasionally get a hit, but it's not going to be that effective. In addition, with the waves, the thing's going up and down. You got to remember, when you're talking about a small 50, 60-foot boat or something, you could shoot over the boat by mistake. When you're in waves, let's look at my hand, okay? Your wave comes, you go up, then you go down. So you're over the waterline, and now you're under the waterline. Now you're over the waterline. Now you're under the waterline. So that's why I'm saying it can go over the boat. Guys, you're talking extremely difficult shooting here. It's not lightweight. And the American ship shooting at it is going up and down in the waves too. I'm not so sure they're going to get a hit, okay? And these little boats move faster than the destroyer, probably double speed or close to it. So on top of the zigging and the zagging on both parties' part, you're also at an incredibly fast rate of speed. And ships don't go that fast. So these missiles are not necessarily set up to provide a high hit level with boats going, 60, 70 knots, 50 knots, It's probably going more than 50 knots. They hot rod these things. Some of these boats will go 90 miles an hour. I don't know if Iran runs them that fast, but you can buy boats that'll go over 100 miles an hour. They have boats that size where you look in the back and they put 4 big Evinrude engines in there. That sucker flies. You can get those things to hit 100. You got to be a nut to want to ride around on the water at a speed like that, because you could go crash and kill yourself. What do you want to do that for? But, running 50, 60 miles an hour is not lunatic land. It's just having a toy. You're playing with it. But then when you get up to 70, that's really, they can shoot torpedo. But here's the thing with the destroyer. The distance to the destroyer is the advantage of the destroyer. Maybe. But they do put anti-ship missiles on these go-fast boats. And the range of that easily could be 20 miles, 25 miles. Probably isn't more than 5 or 10. But even that, so there's a lot of problems they got. Now, let's compound it. America's going to be using fighter jets to defend against the go-fast boats. And let's compound it further so you get the picture. Iran has set all kinds of missiles up on the shores of Iran by the Straits of Hormuz. So on the land, Iran is the king. Why? They build bunkers for the guys to hide in, right? Could be 6, 10, 12-foot thick bunkers, okay? And, the bullets and the bombs aren't going to do much against 10, 12-foot concrete bunker. What are they going to do? Now you got to start having serious bunker busters. Okay, so they're shooting from land missiles. They could shoot anti-ship missiles. They could use drones at the destroyer. So the destroyer has a drone threat. So you got 10 go-fast boats going. And then let's say you got 30 drones launched at it. You got 40 threats. What does the destroyer have to do to end the encounter? Stop all the ordnance from coming. How can the destroyer stop the land-based ordnance from coming? Well, he can. He has to take his missiles and fire at the land-based launch sites. Can a real destroyer do that? Yeah. So that's going to stop the missiles from coming at him, but it's not going to stop the drones, because the drones will come from another location that he can't see or shoot or know where it is. So he's got a drone swarm coming at him. Then he's got go-fast boats coming at him. And then they could also launch surface-to-surface missiles at the destroyer from another location. So how's America going to stop them from closing the Persian Gulf? There's 2 Well, there's maybe realistically, there's like two ways they could do it. One way is to send destroyers in there. They're not going to send aircraft carriers in there because Iran will sink it. They send destroyers in there, which means you're going to be leaving the aircraft carrier somewhat exposed, but okay. You send the destroyers in there and they attack anything and everything. But that doesn't stop closing the straits, because Iran can keep the Straits of Hormuz closed if they don't own a single boat anymore. Let's say America sinks every single boat Iran has, everything. They're going to fire missiles from the shore. They could even push artillery out from the shore and shut the Straits of Hormuz that way. First thing is, all the insurance companies are going to tell their customers, get the heck out of that Persian Gulf. You got 12 hours or 18 hours, whatever they give them. Then your insurance will probably give them 24 hours and then cancel their insurance. So if they get attacked in the Persian Gulf, they lose the ship. Then they could get sued for losing the payload, and they're going to get, the crew might sue them, the survivors, I don't know. They're not going to like that. So the ships that would be traversing the Persian Gulf, carrying anything, cotton, pistachio nuts, soda, and shoes, they're going to get out of there post-haste. Woo, let's get out of here. Okay, and who's going to go back into the Persian Gulf? Nobody. They're not going to let ships get out with the oil. They'll fire at them from land. So sinking their ships, you send AWACS up, you send F-15s, F-16s. The F-15s shoot 2 3/4 rockets at it. They can hold 30. They start sinking the ship. What good's it do? So the Persian Gulf looks like it's going to get, what would America have to do to get rid of it? They would have to use their AWACS, F-16s, F-15s, F-35s. They'd have to go in and get rid of all the radar on the land in Iran with the F-35s and the F-22 Raptors. Okay, could they do that? Hands down. Would it work? Hands down, it would work. Iran has been getting large deliveries from Russia and China of anti-missile systems. So there's a lot of work you got to do. Okay, but can it be done? Yeah. 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 Then where are we left? Well, what we're left with then is you have to go in and take out all the crazy ships that Iran has, all the go-fast boats. They have real destroyers, maybe 3, 4. They look like real boats, right? Real destroyers. And then they got submarines, which are going to be hard to take out. Very shallow water in the Persian Gulf. And then you're going to have, rifle fire, machine gun fire. So how would you take all of the Iranian boats out? They have boats disguised as commercial ships that launch missiles and drones. They got ramps on these boats that are open, and they have like it's called a drone carrier. I'm sure they could put hundreds of drones on the boat. Iran turns out drones by the hundreds. They crank them out like crazy. Can you shut the Straits of Hormuz just by launching drones at ships going through? 99.9% you can do it. Okay. So what would you do? You'd have to get rid of all of their stuff. Okay. So you have to just openly start massacring the Iranian Navy. Okay. You've got to kill it all. You got to sink all they're not going to surrender. You got to kill all their ships. Then you got to go in and bomb the daylight so they land to destroy their missile launch capability. Can America do this? I don't know. I think so. That might be why Trump's bringing another armada over here, but he's talking about a big, beautiful armada. I can't find anything anywhere about this armada. It's not coming in on ship tracking, so they could have their responders turned off. I don't know. The only thing I could tell you that I know about is that the Bush aircraft carrier left January 13th. It pulled out of Norfolk, Virginia, headed into the Atlantic. My thought is it's in theater someplace, working its way around to Diego Garcia and then to the Abraham Lincoln, so they'll be near each other. That's what I think they're doing. Now, what's going to happen when America's massacring Iran's navy? Don't think Iran and Russia are just going to sit there and, blow kisses at Trump. They might blow bombs at him. We have to see what happens. So now Trump is sitting there, this is the violin coming out. Tell me another one. Trump is sitting there saying that he might have to blockade Iran. What a schmuck. He's as dumb as Ayatollah Khomeini. I mean it. He's just saying that to try to confuse Khomeini. How's he going to do it? If he puts any destroyers out there, they're going to get sunk. He can't do it. He's just talking. He ain't going to do it. The likely course of action would probably be keep some destroyers in the Sea of Oman or the Indian Ocean far away from Iran. So if they want to come out and attack the ships, they're going to have a fuel problem, and they're going to be seen coming by hours, and then planes can take them out or whatever, right? And just take the radar out and concentrate on destroying Iran's country. Let them put the blockade up on the Persian Gulf. This is the smart thing. And just destroy the country. when you destroy the country, it's irrelevant, the go fast boats and all that. The guys won't get any orders. They won't be getting refueled. They won't know what to do. They'll just stop. They'll dock the boat and try to figure out what to do. That's what I think the best thing is. But how long is it going to take to destroy Iran? Probably 2 months, 3 months, and the straits are going to remain closed. The economies of the world are going to be finished. They're all based on oil. They all use oil. Who doesn't use oil? Boy, they did themselves in, didn't they? What used to be their jealousy, oh, he's got oil, how great he is, all this sick thinking and combining. Bad. What about sleeper agents in America? Well, if Iran starts getting attacked, they'll have their sleeper agents minimally get launched. And that's going to also include Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi agents in America, which I can't imagine that they're not there because they came in when Biden was there. While the war with Israel and all these Arab states was going on, they loaded up in there. So, yeah, Trump isn't going to be able to stop it. It's going to be a mockery. Trump's going to be made a mockery of. You watch this. Let me check the live stream. See if I have questions. I'll give you more breakdown of the things, the tools, the war toys that Iran has deployed. Let me see if I have any questions here in the chat. I like to answer questions. It'll take a minute. I'll read the questions out loud if I have any. Let's see what we got here. Thank you for giving me all these pleasant greetings and hellos. Thank you. God's day of vengeance, it comes. This is recompense, though, I think. Well, it may be over for Iran, though. Somebody said something I don't understand. Hi, Moshe. I'm up 138 here. Probably on a precious metal. I'm thinking that's what the silver price is. We'll check in a minute. All right. This thing's giving me trouble. Hold on. What happens if a carrier is sunk? It would be a big loss. Oh, it'll be amazing loss. It's going to be hard for Iran to sink. They're not letting that carrier get exposed. It could happen. The other thing is, the Straits of Hormuz is shallow. So you start putting ships down there that sink and they're pointing up in the mud. They themselves could be a hazard to shipping. But I think they could dispose of that. They could blow it up or tow it away or something like that. The rich get richer, absolutely. Someone is saying what? I've got potatoes in buckets in my apartment window now. That window's sun in your eyes will grow them. Oh yeah, but the sun warms up in here too. I just put up with it. We used to grow food. My wife had the stroke, and I've got disabilities. We stopped, but we got a lot of canned stuff. A lot. A lot. Let's see if I got. I don't think I have. What's this one say? What happens when the Straits of Hormuz are shut? You have a global economic collapse. I've been going through that with you. Okay, let me go back and lay out some more stuff for you. So it's worth that you know this, because it's not that this is it's happening. It's not that it already occurred. Schmuckamania in Iran has to say, okay, close the straits. But they're all set up for it. I'm going to go through all this with you. Give me a minute. I'll get to my notes now. Um, See, Iran doesn't want to have a war with America. This is what you need to understand. Because if they do have a war with America, they're going to get hits. And they know that Israel will be in the war. And they know that Israel plays hardball. They're not so sure Trump's got it in him, but they know Israel does. So they're trying to find a way out of this mess without having to take Trump to war. They know they can't really, they can't convince themselves they're going to win this war hands down, because they're probably not. Even if they did, the amount of damage they would take would take them 10, 20 years to rebuild. All right, let's go through what the preparations Iran has undertaken past tense for this endeavor. Iran has issued uh, notices to airmen, NOTAMs, closing or restricting airspace over parts of the Strait of Hormuz to allow live fire military exercises. These kinds of drills are typically part of preparing the military forces for potential conflict and significant deterrence. Deployment of their naval assets, Iranian naval assets. Okay. Iran has moved submarines, including larger Fateh, Fateh class, and smaller Shadir, Chadir class vessels into the Strait of Hormuz area amid using tensions with the U.S. and allied forces. These deployments can serve as a deterrent to complicate foreign travel in operation. So I know it was at 4, the submarine count, 2 and 2, 2 little mini subs and 2 big ones, but I think it went up by 1 or 2. Okay. Preparations indicative of possible obstruction. The Iranian forces loaded naval mines onto boats in the Persian Gulf as part of possible preparations that could be used to disrupt shipping through the strait in a more serious confrontation, though there has been no confirmed deployment of mines to the straits itself. So what they did is a naval mine. Now, naval mines in the 1940s were big round things. They generally weighed about 1,000 pounds. They could be bigger, sometimes 2,000. And they had spikes and they floated on the surface. They were dark gray usually or something, and they floated on the surface. So every one of these spikes, and they probably had 15 of them on the thing, was a detonator. So if a ship tapped one of the spikes, it would detonate the mine, and the mine would be right adjacent to the boat, right at the hull. It was an immediate thing. It would tap it, and then in 2 or 3 seconds you'd have detonation, or 5 seconds, very quick, probably 2 or 3. Click, boom. Blow holes in the ship. It's not that kind of mine, because what they used to do, they would have guys that would be lookouts on the warship. They'd put them. You had to put them on the sides of the boat as well as in the front. But when you were on the sides, they were usually on the front sides. Okay. And these were guys that had good eyes, and they were marksmen. They had a regular good old rifle, like back then it would have been a 30-06 or a 308 with a 180 grain bullet going over 3,000 feet per second, like 3,300 feet per second. So all they needed to do was plink at the thing. It would be enough of an abrupt blow to the mine that it would cause the detonation to go off. Okay. But these mines today go under the surface. So what they probably do is drop them with some sort of a ballast on a line down to the bottom or something, and they keep them at a certain depth. Or maybe they have a way to control where the depth is. There's probably many ways of doing it. The mine would basically have a battery, okay? But the battery could be this big. It could last a year, easy, 2 years, 3 years. It could last a long time, okay? And it's pinging to see who goes over the surface of the mine. And if it gets a big metal signature, it returns the ping, then the mine blows up. So it comes with tremendous force from underneath the boat. It hits them in the hull. Okay? And it could break the boat in 2 pieces. It could do a lot of crazy things. So they're just minutes away from, doing it. They're just minutes away from doing this. All they got to do is the boats are tied up. They go out in the ocean. They have a map with coordinates, and they start dropping the mines. And I guess it'd probably take them a couple of hours. They probably send 2 or 3 boats out, and then they would make a map of where the mines are and how to navigate them, so they could run their own naval boats through it. could a okay. So the naval mines are good to go. There's no reports that they've put them in the water yet. So the Straits of Hormuz is open right now, but I think it's pretty scary. And I imagine a lot of shipping companies don't want to go through there, you know? Iran's military is planning an air and sea forces notices, rather, air and sea notices might reflect an intent to shift towards an anti access area denial. Saying, oh, no, you can't come here, you know. Then the insurance companies will cancel their insurance and the shipping isn't going to come. And then the prices are going to go up like a rocket ship. Political and command, okay. The Iranian commanders, the big brass, you know, have publicly claimed complete control over sea and land. The IRGC and the other military and the government officials in Iran are emphasizing readiness and deterrence if the U.S. or allies attack, but have not confirmed an active blockade at this point. We don't have anything telling us there is an active blockade at this point in time. We have a lot telling us they could impose it fairly immediately. So you got just, you know, what you got going on here. This is very, very real. You got military drills on the part of Iran and America. You've got restricted airspace, water space, notifications, reported submarine movements that are very ominous. You got statements from Iranian government officials at a high level saying that they have the control of the Persian Gulf and their threat process. You know, they could, you know, invoke anytime they want, and they can. It's true. So a lot of this is driving gold and silver and oil prices. We'll check the prices momentarily. Now, the Houthis are going to do the same with the Red Sea using their missiles and their boats and stuff like that. And that's got 8.5% of the global oil. 8.5%. And the Persian Gulf is 20 to 25%. And I think that's conservative. It might be more. But, you know, minimally, you got about 30% between the Persian Gulf and the Houthis shutting the Red Sea. And roughly, that's about a third of the world's oil ain't moving. We had never seen anything like that. Now, let me tell you what's going on in China, but I'm going to take a fast break real quick. And it's pretty weird and ominous, threatening. It's crazy, actually. I'll tell you. Hold on a minute. Now, don't look at this China thing by itself. That's stupid. Look at the China thing in light of Iran. Look at the China thing in light of the other day, and the other days, a few days ago, not long, in a 56-hour period, China sent 16 super jumbo planes with military equipment to Iran. Well, here we go. This is well reported. There are numerous reports circulating, including from international news outlets, the so-called reliable sources. Reliable sources in the news media, what does that mean to me? It means that when they tell you something, it frequently is true. But the danger with these bums is what they never tell you. So you got to be very careful with them. They're talking about heightened military activity and speculation over unusual troop movements around Beijing. That's the capital of China, especially linked to political/military leadership shakeups. China is not confirming this stuff, but other people are. Why would they? Why would China confirm it? Recent reporting notes that senior People's Liberation Army leaders, including Zhang Yoxia. This is the number 2 guy in China, the vice chairman of China's Central Military Commission, have been announced as under investigation. I'm hearing arrests too, for violations. Such moves are unusual within China's political and military elite. Pretty unusual, true. And analysts point out that these developments could explain tighter security measures observed for the public all right, I'm going to read you something. It's a little bit more definitive than that, okay? Now, I'm not sure that this is 101% accurate, but I think it is. Going to add to this. The China army is going into Beijing to try to protect itself in Beijing because they're getting rid of top brass in the army. Top brass, like the equivalent of a 4-star general, may have friends that are colonels and 1- and 2-star generals that want to help them, and they may try to overthrow Xi Jinping, the head schmuck of China. So military convoys are being seen traveling the road towards Beijing. When China started arresting the general and other high-ranking officers 3 days ago, that says investigation. I'm telling you, arresting them. Hey, you're in custody. We're investigating you. That's an arrest, right? Okay. They froze all the troop movements. Now they decided they want to move them into the capital. This is 1-day-old news. It's from yesterday. It's you might still be on yesterday in some parts of the world. I'm on Thursday morning here in Israel, the 29th. The army has taken control. Now, this is what they're also saying. Taken control of the Forbidden City. That's where the royalty used to live. And other army units are continuing to head elsewhere in the capital city, Beijing. We don't know what's happened to Xi Jinping, the leader of China that was voted in for his whole life. It seems he's still in control, but he might not be in Beijing. He might have went to some mountain retreat or underground, or he might be hiding in Beijing. Who knows? The concern is that there's activity to prevent a coup in China, or there is a coup in China. This is not got any confirmation, it could likely be construed as preventive measures. Another character other than Xi Jinping could be taking over from him, and it could be a military guy and wants to play hardball with Trump. How do I feel about that comment and prophecy? I think that fits in with prophecy beautifully, but I can't tell you that's what's going to happen. I don't know. A lot of, yeah, it fits, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So there's trouble in the land of the egg roll, okay? There's trouble in China. I love Chinese food. So there's trouble. And what does trouble mean? Well, we don't know yet. It could be that Xi Jinping took care of business and, the general drill is going to be to go out and arrest more. If there's a conspiracy going on, to arrest more and more of them. The way to successfully pull a coup off, remember Iran the other days, take over Beijing or take over Tehran, and then destroy all the military buildings and structures to show the power of the military, drive the leader, the Ayatollah Shmukhmani or Xi Jinping, underground so he can't walk around, and then you basically take over. Now in Iran, the people taking over would call Trump up on the phone and say, "We love you, help us." And Trump would shine him on and say, "Oh, yeah, we'll help you." And he'll do something for him. I don't know why, but he'd definitely do something. And with the Xi Jinping takeover, I could practically guarantee you that this is not going to be some guy that's going to call Trump up and, start singing "Give Peace a Chance" to him. No. He'll probably call Trump up and say, this is a new era now. I'm going to blow you off the planet if you don't listen to us. That's more likely what you're going to see. It'd be a hard liner. Xi Jinping, the leader of China, doesn't have much guts. Okay? He threatens Taiwan, but he doesn't attack Taiwan. Like Trump, they're all Satan bots, and Satan's afraid of war because he's got his people at the head of every nation in the world. So what has he got to gain for a war? Satan and the demons have no gain, so they're trying to stop the wars by having their people that serve them stop the wars. But Satan doesn't have the keys to the kingdom, the believers do. And we use them. We use the keys to the kingdom. I don't know other people that do in a group, but we do. Binding and loosing and agreeing in prayer. Do it every day. So what happens next? Well, obviously I think the George Bush aircraft carrier group is on the way here. Where Trump's big, beautiful armada is, look, you're going to move an armada around. You're going to shut the transponders, right? But you're going to cross oceans. You're going to come up on the radar of, fishing boats, cruise ships, maybe merchant marine vessels. Now, how could they avoid that? Well, not easily, because these radars can go over 100 miles. Now, small boats like, are not necessarily going to go out that far, but they'll go at least, 30, 40 miles or something like that. So maybe they're just avoiding the paths that shipping takes. See, shipping, they don't just, when you go in the Atlantic, they just don't go all over the place, okay? They follow shipping lanes. Why? Because it's safer for them. If pirates decide to come around there, all the ships get on the horn, and then people send their military out there. Could be military from many countries that are floating around in the water somewhere. They'll come to help. Can the pirates handle the military? Not a chance. They got naval artillery. They got heavy machine guns. They just blow them up. I mean, surrender. You don't surrender. They could take a 25 millimeter or 30 millimeter gun and just, in about 11, 12 seconds, the boat's shredded and it's on fire, and they're in the water if they're alive. Literally, that's what it would happen. You know, and if you get in distress, your boat catches a fire, you're taking water, you got some problem with it, you lost your generator, your communications is down, your radar got changed, something. Just you're where ships are going to keep coming by every few minutes, maybe every 15 minutes you'll see a ship, or every 5 minutes. I took a lot of cruises, maybe as many as 25, and I remember many times seeing commercial vessels at night and day, um, not that far from the cruise ship, maybe mile or 2 miles, 3 miles. They don't usually get within a few yards of you. That would be scary. They go far away. Once I took a cruise ship and I was in New Orleans up the river. What was that? The Mississippi? I don't know what river it is. In a river. It's a broad, wide river. And some guy, it was a Carnival cruise line. And what the heck were we doing? We left Tampa. Yeah. So we must have went, our first stop from Tampa was probably New Orleans. Then we went to Mexico, Meridia, I think, or maybe Cozumel. I can't remember. It could have been Cozumel. So we left and we stopped the next day. We went to New Orleans. So I like New Orleans. I think it's a fun place. You know, it's an interesting city. They got a lot of old housing, not like in Israel. I mean, we got stuff in Israel that's old. I mean, like in America, they say George Washington slept here. In Israel, they say, it's Solomon slept here or something. Goes back way, way further. But New Orleans is beautiful. It's scenic. You got streetcars. You got very good, interesting food there. So anyway, we stopped in New Orleans, but they stopped the boat at what appeared to be a mall on the river. And you got off, and it's very easy getting off and on because you're going from Florida to New Orleans. You didn't have to mess with passports and customs or anything like that. It's, like taking a subway or like taking a Greyhound bus. You get on, you get off. There's no pay. There are your papers. They don't do that. So we got off, and the mall was rather boring. I mean, I think we might have got some ice cream there or something like that. And then we took a streetcar ride and we went to eat. But going up that river was that a special captain came on to drive the boat. I never saw a cruise ship do anything like this. I was scared. I didn't even want to look outside the window. It was that bad. I was a kid. I drove a taxi in New York for a while, and not long, very brief. And people used to get in my taxi and say, "He's good and he's fast. Just don't look out the window." And I would they would get scared. So this I mean, I never saw the ship was going so fast, so close to so many other boats on the river. I was flabbergasted, And this was an older cruise ship that was probably about 850 feet long. That's a big honking boat for the river. And that was an interesting but frightening experience. I never saw a cruise ship do that. I mean, I was really scared. These cruise ships are usually, I've seen them go out of the channels in Florida and stuff like that. But I never saw any lunatic behavior like this. When you go out the channels, you usually got to go at about 5 miles an hour. It's very peaceful. And that's how it is when you're going out from other ports. I never saw anything like this. I mean, this thing was hauling, and then it gets to the part where the mall is, and the guy just slowed down, of course, and pulled it up and tied the boat up, and then you got off, and we spent the day in New Orleans. I think we got on the boat in Tampa in the evening, because I remember we went to an amusement park, Busch Gardens, and then I think we got on the boat like 5 o'clock, or I don't remember, something like that. And then the boat was traveling, and then we got in New Orleans in the morning. Anyway, yeah. So if this happens, the cruise ships are going to be parked, and that's good, because then everybody will know where the ships of Tarshish is, where they're parked. They're not going to. What's the other side? The other side is, now I added this up once. You take all the cruise ships in the world, which Jehovah has access to, trust me, you can put about at least 250,000 people per turn. So you can bring 250,000 people into Israel, or you would be stopping in the wilderness likely, at 250,000 a throw. Now, you don't need a pier to offload people in the wilderness, and I'll tell you how this works. It's very simple. The boat stops maybe a half a mile offshore. It could be a mile, depending on how shallow it is. Usually a half a mile or most a mile. Then they take the life preserver boats, and they use them as shuttlecraft if there's no other shuttle boats around. And the life preserver boats are solid with a solid roof. They're like a bubble. They're sink proof. They don't sink. If you took a chainsaw and cut the thing in half, 2 halves would float in the water. They won't sink. They just won't sink. And waves will wash over them, and you might get off on your side, and then it'll right itself. It won't stay upside down. It'll right itself. They're very expensive. They got a motor in them. They got survival gear and food and water and stuff stashed in them and stuff like that. The problem is they're sealed, so if people start puking, which could happen in rough seas, it's going to be really smelly in there, which means more puking. But anyway, for using them for shuttle, you get in them, and they usually seat you rather tight. You can get 30 people in one, 40 people, I'm not sure. They got like bench seating in there. They're designed because the ships are always traveling in near shipping lanes or in shipping lanes. They're designed that you could stay alive for several days in there, with food and something to drink, probably, something like that. But they're usually, in reality, you would only be in there a few hours, or maybe less, an hour or an hour and a half or a half hour even, not much. And because they have motors, they can motor up to another boat that could offload you. So the way it would work is they would have like one of the doors in the cruise ship down low in the boat by the water would open, and they would bring the other ship up close, and they might put a walkway or a platform or something there so you could get on the boat. It would be not hard. I've done it several times. It's not hard. There's a lot of ways they could do it. And you're not out in deep water. They're doing this right close to shore. You get in the boat, and then it takes, depending how far you are, 2 to 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and you're, maybe 5 minutes, or even if you're far out, it may take 10 minutes. And then you're on shore. They don't. I never saw them run aground with the boat. They usually go to a pier or a dock where they offload you. So somebody would probably have to build a dock, or there'd be a way to do it. I don't know what it would be, but then you're on shore, so it's not that hard to do. These are small boats. They may be 25 feet long or 30 feet. So you could just have like a pier for rowboats, so little small fishing boats would do it. You can dock up by something like that. It's no big deal. Now, if if that would be the wilderness, so there might not be a dock, or we might build one, and then you get off, and you're in the wilderness. So I don't remember. I think maybe it might even be higher than 250,000. It may be up to 4, but it's definitely a massive amount. Now, there's some cruise ships that take 5,000 or 6,000 passengers, and they have probably about 3,500 or 3,000 crew. So I don't know if you would cut the crew down, probably cut that down by half or something. I don't know. We're certainly not going to run bartending, and we're probably not going to run entertainment and have plays and shows and movies. That'll be out. And we'll need food. And you need safety, and that's it. And you got to take care of the cabins, because there's somebody going to be using it after you. So the boats will just keep rotating, So the bad news, if the boats were operating, then what do? The boat's got 3, 4, 5,000 people on it, and their country's falling apart. They got no way to get back to their country. If you take them, so the boat's not usable. These people aren't going to want to go to Israel. They're not going to want to go to the wilderness. They're not going to want to serve the Lord. So it's better that the boats are parked empty. Don't you understand now? Elam gets destroyed. Elam is definitely Iran, very, very much likely Iraq, and maybe pieces of Syria. Iraq has the same drought, very severe drought in some places, just like Iran. They said they're going to fight to support Iran, and they will. And they've done it before, and they'll get destroyed. And Elam gets destroyed so bad by her enemies in the plural that the people that are in Iran have to leave, and they scatter into every single nation of the world. That's just a prophecy, where the sword follows them and they get cut off. So Iran is likely going to be doing some pretty nasty stuff to the world, and there's probably going to be a bunch of people that are going to fight against Iran, not just America and Israel and the UK. We know that France and Germany are in. That might be enough, but there might be another 4 or 5 coming in, with 10. I don't know. And Iran's going to get plowed down. Now, what kind of shape is America going to be in? America might be in extremely poor military shape after this happens. They could lose a lot of aircraft. They could lose a lot of boats and troops. And their bomb and missile supplies are run down. So they got a victory, but they paid a bad price for it. America hasn't paid a bad price for a victory since Vietnam, and they never had a victory in Vietnam. Okay? This is what's I'm seeing shaping up. Elam is Iran, Iraq, and likely a piece of Syria. Edom is, in my book, Yemen. Moab and Ammon is Jordan. Ammon is North Jordan, the capital today, but it's called Ammon in the Bible, and they make friends with Israel and survive in the long run. In the short run, they may not do good. And Moab is destroyed. That's the rest of Jordan. And then some people think that Edom is Jordan, but I don't think so. I think it's Yemen. And that's also found in Jeremiah 49, not just Elam getting destroyed, but Yemen, and it gets destroyed so bad, like the daughter of Babylon, no one ever lives there again. So Iraq is going to join Iran. They're likely part of Elam. They're going to get destroyed. Edom is going to help Iran. They're going to get destroyed. You getting the picture? Now, Syria, I don't know. The scripture for Syria, we read Damascus shall be a ruinous heap. But this guy in Syria is an enemy of Iran. He's likely not going to help Iran. Maybe part of Iran, of Syria, gets it. I'm not sure yet. So we got a great, great, great prophecy fit here. And I'm watching this thing with the ships of Tarshish, and it's getting layered in also with a good fit for prophecy. And I know what I'm personally feeling. Look, God's not going to put to the believers in bad circumstances without giving you an exodus. You're going to get a way out. God's not going to keep you in any bad situation year after year after year after year after year, unless you're sinning like crazy and won't stop. And even in those circumstances, generally what happens is if you keep doing that, he'll just forget about you and your life will get better while you're on earth until you're dead. He only chastens those he loves. He stops loving you because you're such a sinner and just the heck with you, leaves you alone. You're not worth working with anymore. He can't work with you, so he just drops it. Now, a lot of you, all of you maybe, are busted up. A lot of you got very bad health problems. We all got health problems. When you get old, you get health problems. When you're not old, you get health problems sometimes, but you got all kinds of other difficulties, okay? All sorts of stuff. Family, money, work, health, government, you name it, you got it, okay? And he's not going to keep you there forever. You're going to get delivered, okay? And I'm feeling something's going on here. Now, just because Iran and Elam get destroyed, it doesn't mean we're in redemption. When you see the two witnesses burn up the enemies surrounding Israel on all the sides, you better start believing you're in redemption. And I'd start saying, take yourself some equipment and prop your head up and keep looking in the sky day and night. Hey, what's up there? Lift up your head, your redemption draweth nigh. It be coming. Now there's going to be a big heavenly trumpet blowing, and it'll be light like crazy, and you'll know about it. And I don't think he's going to appear for a second and a half. He may be up there for an hour or two. To scare the people. What do they say? Tell the rocks to fall on us, and hide us. They're not going to like it. The light is going to be intense. Arise, shine, your light has come. The glory of the Lord is risen upon you. What are Satan's people going to say? Shrivel up and hide in the dirt. The light is coming. You can't take the light. Okay. every eye shall see him, even those that pierced him, Zechariah 12. Those that pierced him shall look upon him in the clouds. So let's not get hung up on we've reached redemption based on Iran and Yemen and Iraq and all that. Let's not base it on that, but let's understand that Jeremiah 49 comes in front of what chapter in the Bible? Let's see, 50, and that's the destruction of the daughter of Babylon. So does it sound like Jeremiah, the Elam and Yemen destruction may come first? Yeah, gee, why not? Right, of course, it sounds that way. All right? And then America is going to be in a weakened condition and something will happen to them. We know, I mean, you're in Revelation 18, Jeremiah 50, 51, Isaiah 47. So we know that's going to happen. Ezekiel 38, 39 are not for these days. We're not living without bars and walls and peace and safety with wealth and riches and cattle and gold and silver. That ain't the case. And that's how Ezekiel 38 starts off early on. So you can forget that one for now. So there you go. And I think we're there. I think we're getting there really quick. Now, how much further is it going to take? Not much. No. Iran is not going to have to get a lot of guts to do the blockade because they're pretty sure Trump is just going to try to call their bluff, even if he does that, and they'll play chicken with Trump. What's chicken? In the 50s, kids would take their cars. You couldn't buy fast cars at the car dealer. They didn't have them. So you had to buy, there were a very rare amount of them, maybe as early as 57. Chrysler started putting big engines in a couple of rare models, and Chevy had a 340 block. Most people don't know about it, 340 cubic inch. There was a few, Buick had one. I mean, there weren't many of these things, but there were very, very few big engine cars, and a lot of them were very expensive luxury models and convertibles, and you could get the big engine. And, basically the kids didn't have fast cars, so they took a regular car. And, in the high schools, I don't know if it still goes on, but in the high schools, they had car shop where the kids would take courses in the school working on cars. And they would, take, 2-3 courses in it. I think they only had 1 and 2. And they learned how to work on cars, and that was enough to get them a job at a gas station or a car dealer where they would be in training and, get their foot in the thing and make a living, a nice enough living. So anyway, what they did is they took their own cars and they rebuilt them. So what did they do? Basically, they would change the headers to take the exhaust gases out of the engine. They would tune them so they would be in really precise, exact distances, and then they wouldn't plug them too much of a muffler. They'd run them through a glass pack muffler or some muffler that had very little resistance, so the expent gases would flow faster out of the car, and that would up your horsepower a little bit, not much, maybe 3%, but it would all work. Then they would put a cam in, they'd put a high-rise cam in there, and that would increase your power. Then they would put high compression pistons, so the kids would strip the engine and maybe do this over the summer, or work in the winter in a garage, so they have it for the summer. So they'd put 10.5, 11. You could even get a little over 11 compression ratio, and that would increase you'd have to buy really needed to get Sunoco 260 or Super Shell to be able to get that high of an octane and run it without pinging. But they knew where to go. Sunoco 260 did the job. So they'd all just tank up there. Then they would work on their manifold and their carburation and put like 2 4-barrel carburetors in there, so they'd be getting 4 or 5 miles to the gallon. But, back then you're paying 18, 19 cents a gallon for premium, so who cared? You know, hey, Dad, could I have some money to fill up the car for the weekend? Yeah, how much you need? Oh, I don't know, $2, and then fill up, $3, and then the tires, they bought as good a tire as they could get. Tires were they were junky tires, and you had inner tubes in them. They didn't have, radial tires or anything good. And they usually changed the shock absorbers for the car so they'd get it handling better. And they would take the transmission and they would put a 4-speed on the floor. When the 4-speed is up high on the column, it's slower to get the gears to move, which is under the floorboard. So when they put the 4-speed on the floor in there, it's right there. And then they would get, what was the name of that shifter? I had them, I can't remember. But it had a T handle on it. The shifter came up like this, it bent, and it had a handle on it like that, made out of aluminum with finger dents, so you could hold it like that, and you'd be driving, you'd be in first gear, you work it, but boom, you'd yank it back, wrecking your car, of course. Then when you got into third, you'd push it forward, and, rip it back. You only had a 4-speed. They didn't have any 6 speeds or anything. And I can't remember the name of those shifters anymore. They weren't transmissions. They were just shifters, but they were really Hurst, Hurst. They were really good shifters. I mean, you felt everything. They were really good. If you didn't want to play that game, you could just tap them, and they were excellent. I mean, they really worked. So they would rig the car out like that. So maybe they'd get a car that had 180 horsepower or 160 from the factory, and they'd get it up to 240 or 250, something like that. So the car would be a lot faster than what everybody else was driving, but it wasn't anything like what was really going on. And then in 1964, Pontiac came out with the GTO, which was a Pontiac Tempest with an engine they said had 348 horsepower, but hogwash, it had over 400. It probably had like 450, they said. So they started understating the horsepower, I guess the insurance companies didn't know what to do, so they didn't raise the rates. But this thing was as fast as a Porsche Turbo would be 50 years later. 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds with a stick shift. I mean, this thing would be throwing your head back, It was a mover, man. It was a mover, And then kids got confused because you were able to buy a car from the factory that was very, very fast. Now, Corvette started, that was 1964, the GTO. And they made a song about it. These people said, GTO, wah, wah, wah. And then it said, I'm going to save all my money and buy a GTO. So they were brainwashing the kids to save all their money and buy a GTO. GTO was about $3,400, I think, for a sedan or, nice bucket seat Tempest, which today would be a good sized car. Back then it was a compact, but today would be a nice car. And you had red line tires, which were better than regular, but not that good. You had good brakes, and it was a nice car. And it would be fair. And then they came out a couple of years after that. They had a Buick version of it, the same General Motors, and then they started. By 66, 67, they were going crazy. They had Corvettes with 427 engines with 425 horsepower, which were probably closer to 500. Carroll Shelby came out with the AC Cobra, which had a 428 or a 427. It had about 400 something horsepower too. Very light car. It was nothing to it. It was just sitting on an engine, And the cars got crazy. Now they're crazy again. They're crazier today than they ever were. There's a lot of people going around and buying 750 horsepower cars. That's very dangerous. When you drive these cars on the freeway, the real problem is some guy, a regular driver, out there driving. It's nice and leisurely. There's 3 lanes, 2 lanes. You're running at 125 miles an hour, and he's running at 65 or 70, or maybe you're running at 140. You're running twice his speed. He looks in his mirror, there's nobody on his left. So he starts to slowly change lanes. And then you're coming up on him, and he doesn't know you're there. And then you could have a collision. You have to go for brakes. So a lot of people, when you buy these American cars with 750 horsepower and you got to go for brakes, good luck. If you buy a Porsche for today, you maybe $160,000 Porsche, and you go for brakes, what's going on is you've got a computer controlling the brakes on all 4 wheels, and if it looks like you're going to pull a skid, it compensates on each individual brake. So when you go to mash that brake, it's going to feel like somebody threw the anchor out. You're going to really stop. You got a good chance of making it, a real good chance. And then if you start getting into even more crazy cars, the ones that cost millions of dollars like Bugattis, you could stop. I mean, but see, that's the problem. The guy doesn't know. So if you're coming up on him at maybe 160 and he's going 65, 70, he comes over, he might come over 2 seconds before you're there and you can't stop. Now you had an impact at a crazy speed. What happens? You probably both die. See, going maybe 80, 90 miles an hour is it. When I was as a kid in law enforcement, I was, I would drive stupid. You have no penalty for driving. You can go as fast as you want. As long as you don't kill yourself, nobody's going to do anything to you. The cops, you just show them your ID. You don't even talk. I wouldn't even talk to them. I would just open up the wallet and show them the ID and the badge, and they just say, okay, you can go. Or go. Okay, see you. Or they might say, oh, who you with? Oh, I'm, my name is Larry Phillips. How are you? And shake your hand. Nothing happens. So, but, I had a couple of close calls. I had a Mercury Cougar with a 351 Cincinnati block, which they said had 300 horsepower, but it probably had about 360. And it was very fast. It had automatic, and I used to drive it. And, but now you get into, let's say you're in the company car or police car, you run 100 a lot. You get stupid. It's not smart to run 100. It's not. But you do it because you get used to it. And running 100 it's dangerous. It really is. People don't think about it, but I think running 80 is the most you should ever run. I mean, that's the max. Most cars, unless you're driving a race car on the street, like a turbo Porsche, I had 2 of those. I had BMW M3. I had 2 of those also at different times. Those things you could run at 100, and the brakes work, the handling works, and stuff like that. But the other driver doesn't work. That's the problem. So it's just really dangerous. It's stupid, really. But the kids do it. I've been, in cars. I was with a detective once, and he was driving. He had his hand over. It was a bench seat. He had his hand on the back, because his girlfriend's in the back, and he's holding her hand while he's driving. You know how dangerous that is. And I'm sitting in the freaking car, and he's doing this, and he's running a flat 100. And I think if I wasn't in the car, he probably would have ran 110. He's one on, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, you can't. And now they're making cars. They're insane. I mean, they go so fast. What people should do is concentrate more on getting a luxury car, not that. You know, they're crazy. They're crazy. So anyway, that's the ships of Tarshish, and it looks like things are coming together. If the ships of Tarshish are coming together, redemption's near. Now, for the United States to be hit in Washington D.C. on the in Revelation 18, that's one thing. But to actually destroy the United States with massive death and fires in and around the cities, and it gets so destroyed, only the animals living there, and many, many people are going to leave. All the true believers will leave. All the known Jews, 6.5 million, will leave. The lost tribes will leave, which is at least going to be, in my opinion, as a guess, only the North American Indians. And that's going to be quite a thing. Quite a thing. Now, someone asked me again about Sabbath, so I want to go through this with you again, but I want to try to take it at a different level. Yeshua put us under grace, not the law. Moses' law is gone. Okay, we don't do Moses' law, but Moses' law has prohibitions against adultery, getting drunk, murder. Does that mean now we can go out and commit murder, adultery, getting drunk? No. There's things in the New Testament that prohibits us from certain behaviors. Okay? A condensed version, and it's only one of many places that appears, is Galatians 5:19-21. Does it mention anything about the Sabbath in there? No. What did Yeshua say in Matthew 5? He said, "Think not that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I came to fulfill. For as long as there is a heaven and an earth, not one jot or tittle shall be done away with from the law." But he didn't say Moses' law. There's the law's changed. Look at Ezekiel 45 with the next temple. There's an anointed prince from the line of David doing sacrifices and offerings in the temple. The glory of God of Israel is residing in the temple. He used to meet with Moses and Aaron at the mercy seat in the tabernacle, but he never resided there. And he resided with them, you could say, in a way, but not that way. And he was around them all the time. And then you have, he went into Solomon's temple and anointed it with the glory cloud, but then left. He didn't stay there. He was never in Solomon's temple living there other than anointing it. He was never in Zerubbabel's temple, nor did he anoint Zerubbabel's temple that we know about. I doubt it ever happened. And he never anointed or resided in Herod's temple. So when Yeshua died, the temple curtain rent, you said the Holy Holies rent, you saw there was no one in there. There was nothing there. Okay. All right. So the question is pertaining to the Sabbath. Okay. So we'll go to the Bible. And let's read Mark 2:27 to 28. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. So the Sabbath was made for man so man could rest. The Lord wanted the people to have at least a day off to rest. Okay? So is it a dumb idea to not take a day off to rest? I mean, for your own sake, but it's a good idea, but it doesn't have to be the Sabbath observance. Let me continue. He's the Lord of the Sabbath. Now let's read Colossians 2:16-17. Let no one judge you regarding a festival, a new moon, or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is Christ. See, you have righteousness and a righteousness standing with Father God Jehovah from Yeshua based on the work that Yeshua did, which was successfully completed and done about 2,000 years ago. You get your righteousness by faith, not by works. So when you start with, well, if I don't observe Sabbath, I'm going to hell, I'm falling apart, I'm going to get punished. There's no place in the New Testament that presents a punishment for not observing the Sabbath. Now, Yeshua said here, let me explain. Where did it go? Let no man judge you regarding a festival. Those are the Moedim. A new moon, when the new moon appears, it's a feast day. Who the heck do you know who ever observed that? Me and my wife did it a few times. In Israel, very few. To do it, I guess, or Sabbaths. Okay, so if no man judge you, okay, it means no one's going to put you out of fellowship or kick you out of the community because you didn't observe these things. See, without the temple, without the active priesthood, there's no way you can observe any of the Moedim because there's nobody doing the offerings. Nor can you observe the new moon, nor can you observe the Sabbath. Now, when you read Ezekiel 45, we see the anointed prince. By the way, the word for anointed is Mashiach, and prince is Nagid. Yeshua is the king of Israel, not the prince, okay? So he's doing the sacrifices for Sabbath in the temple. So there's got to be some future temple observance. It also explains, I believe, on Sabbath, people come in the temple one direction and go out another. So there's some if they're going into the temple on Sabbath, something's up with the Sabbath when we have the temple. But we're not told any penalty for any of this anymore. Remember, the Bible tells us he's going to turn our fast days into feasts and stuff like that, right? We're under grace from what Yeshua did, okay? So when you start saying, I'm going to hell, my life's going to fall apart because I didn't observe the Sabbath, you're going back under Moses' law, and you're saying the righteousness that Yeshua gave you is non-existent. You're still going to go to hell. You have faith in Yeshua, you pray to Yeshua, you believe in Yeshua, but now I'm going to hell because I didn't follow Moses on the Sabbath. That's what you're doing, and that's wrong, because now you're going back to my salvation is based on works. You're saying it's based on faith and works. As a New Testament person who falls into this trap that the espots are commonly trying to lay for you, you are saying, I need to have faith and works to get into heaven. And you are not saved by faith and works. You are not saved by works. You are saved by faith. Faith without works will get you in, but you need works. Works is a sign of your faith, but not the works of Moses' law. That's not where you go with this. Let's keep reading. Galatians 4, 9 to 11. You observe days and months and seasons and years. I fear for you. You see, what Paul's telling them is you observe days, that's Moedim, months, I guess maybe like the 7th month or something like that, and seasons and years. He's saying that they observe them. Okay? And he says, I fear for you. Because, why is he fearing for them? Because they're on their way to heaven, or they might not make it to heaven. Why? Because they're relying on the works of the law. When you say, I'm going to eat a pork chop, if you eat a pork chop, you're going to hell. You're not paying attention to Acts 10, where Yeshua said he made all the food clean. When Peter saw the vision on the roof, his sheet came down 3 times with the animals on it, the unclean animals. It didn't come down with people on it. He didn't say, I made the people clean. He said he made the food clean. Thus, the people were clean from eating the food because the food was no longer unclean. When you pervert it, the perversion of that is that the people are clean, not that the animals are now clean. He changed it. Okay, so when you start saying, Yeshua made me righteous, but I had a lobster thermidor, I'm going to hell, you're back to, I have to do the works of Moses' law, or I'm going to hell. Where in the New Testament does it say you're going to hell for eating an unclean food? Where does it say in the New Testament you're going to have a punishment? You're not going to go to heaven or the kingdom of God, or if you broke Sabbath. People have, for the 2,000 years since 70 AD, where there's been no temple, nobody ever observed Moses' law, ever. It never happened. There was no altar, no temple, no tabernacle, no altar, no active priesthood. Nobody ever followed the law. Why do these nincompoops keep thinking they do? Because some rotten Satan bot puts it in their head. This is having the dross burned out of you. This is purifying the gold and silver. This, what just happened right now, this is it, okay? They got to get, the Levites got to get straight on this too. You know, it's going to be a lot harder for somebody that was Orthodox than somebody who wasn't, Look, I think Yom Kippur is a sin. You're going to sit there and observe Yom Kippur. First of all, you can't, because there's no temple, there's no altar, there's no priesthood. But you're going to say you're going to observe Yom Kippur. And what are you going to do on Yom Kippur? You're going to fast. Well, the Bible never says to fast. It says you're supposed to examine yourself, purge yourself, ask yourself how you do business. Okay, that's not a bad idea, but if you're going to do that and say, because I did this Yom Kippur, I'm saved, I'm not going to the lake of fire, you're back to, I have to do Moses' works or I'm going to hell. It never says in the New Testament that. So what kind of believer are you going to be? Are you going to be a New Testament believer or an Old Testament believer, or are you going to try to make your own hybrid that Satan bots have introduced? Okay, like what's that there's a church that observes the Sabbath. I forgot what they're called. I don't pay. They're all no good. The churches are. So what's going on? And look at the churches. They say, "Oh, we don't do under the law. Here, have a pork chop." And then what do? They put a Christmas tree up in the church. They have a singing Christmas tree. They put Christmas presents under it. Then they do Easter. Then they do Father's Day. They do Mother's Day. All that garbage. And they don't follow Galatians 5:19-21. They got different doctrinal statements, which is variance. And they have denominations, which is seditions, which have their own doctrinal statements. And then they got false doctrines, which are heresies. And they walk all over Galatians 5:19-21. They're full of sin if you follow the Bible. But if you're going to go out and have some pork chow mein and a little lobster in your soup, and you're going to start saying, "Oh gosh, I'm going to hell," are you really a New Testament believer? There's no prohibition in the New Testament for that. Nowhere. So why do you do it? I wasn't as strong with this as I should have been for a long time. But do I think it might be a good idea to take a day off from work every now and then, maybe like once a week to rest? It could be a good idea. But are you have to do it? No. Your righteousness is not of the law, it's of Yeshua. That's why you're under grace. You can't make a case that says, I'm under grace with Yeshua, yet I still have to observe Moses' law, or I'm going to go to the lake of fire. Now you're telling me your salvation comes from two places. It's going to come from faith in Yeshua and Moses' law. But if you don't follow Moses' law, your faith in Yeshua isn't going to cut it and you're going to the lake of fire. That's what these people are telling you. And that is downplaying and mitigating and wiping your feet on the righteousness that Yeshua got for you by giving up his life, hanging on that rotten thing and doing all that stuff, okay? Them spitting on him, pulling his beard, all that stuff, was to give you his righteousness that is accepted and valid. Jehovah considers it valid righteousness. And that is your ticket to heaven. That's what a son of God has. That's it. So let no man judge you in this, in food or drink or the days or the seasons, or you don't have to worry about that stuff. When they asked the apostles, what should they tell the guys, the goyim, the ones that came to faith, not living in Israel, they said to them, don't drink, don't eat, not drink. Yeah, don't drink blood, don't eat meat with blood in it. Don't eat strangled food or food offered to idols. Eating meat with the blood in it would be, I think, pretty similar to drinking blood. If you're not supposed to eat the meat with the blood in it, well, Okay, so those three things. No meat with blood in it, not sacrificed to idols, and not strangled. I think those were the three things. Didn't say Sabbath. It didn't talk to him about eating a pork chop. Okay? It's not just pork. I mean, if you want to eat an elephant, you could eat an elephant. Would I want to eat an elephant? No. Would I want to eat a camel? No. Could you? Yeah, could. Um, so that's the take on the Sabbath. I was getting questions about it, so there's probably a lot of other people that have it. So, you know, according to the Bible, can you accept a job working on Sabbath? You can. Can you go shopping on Sabbath? Yes. Can you paint the room in your house on Sabbath? Yes. There's not, you don't have to do the Sabbath observance according to Moses' law, because anytime you're imposing a condition that I have to do things according to Moses' law or I'm going to go to the lake of fire, you're going wrong. But you have to look at the New Testament. Now, the New Testament is not very fond of, he who loveth to make it a lie, the cowardly, the fearful, the murderers, the adulterers, and all that. They're not, those are not, things that that you're going to be going around doing that are okay, because they're not okay. All right. And you'll find these prohibitions in the New Testament. But if you don't find the prohibition in the New Testament, you're under grace. You can do it. But you got to be smart. Let me use my old dumb example. You could eat any of these foods, but what do you want to do? Make yourself some poison ivy salad? That you don't want to do that. You got to use your common sense. Okay. Got to use your common sense. Look, you guys are having bad economic problems. You're having bad health problems. You're having bad family problems. You got rotten governments. You got bad employers, friends, neighbors. And you're sick of it. You're sick of living with these people. You're sick of having them around you. Okay, God's not going to keep you there. Okay, you're going to come out of it, and I think we're seeing the come out of it now. We're in recompenses. He told me August 10th, 2023. So here we are. It's not a year, it's a Shanat, which is a prophetic period of time, I could say. You could look at it. And then we're going to hit the day of vengeance, and then we'll hit redemption. The day of vengeance is, maybe you could see it as the last day of the day of recompenses and the first day of redemption. Maybe that's probably a good way of looking at it. For all I know, Yeshua might be in the clouds the whole day, because a lot of stuff will be happening. I don't know. I don't think he's going to appear for 11 seconds and then go away or something like that. I think it's going to be quite a while, but we'll see. It's enough time to say, oh, let the rocks fall on us and hide them from him. Let's hide him from the Lord. That sounds to me like the appearing. And this going to take, it got time for them. They're worried about it. They're talking about it with each other, looking them up. So I think that would make me think he's there for a little bit of time anyway. I don't know. All right. So I hope, let me see if I have any good questions in the chat that need dealing with. They might be interesting. I don't know. Let's take a quick look. Sydney, Australia. Great. Never been to Australia. I would have wanted to go. Looks like we had just a lot of nasty people here trying to insult. All right, being a Bible believing site again, I'm going to do a prayer for all of us, and you can agree using the keys of the kingdom. You can agree with it if you're a believer, even if it's a video. God knows that, and He'll work with it. All right. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in their households. I pray we would have strength, stamina, and endurance. I pray for your healing and recuperative power to flow through us, that we keep healing all the time things that need healed. And I pray for all of us and our animals and pets as well, that we'd be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. I pray that our sleep would be sweet and we would wake up at a good hour and we have no trouble falling asleep, being asleep, or staying asleep. And I pray we have no bad dreams or nightmares or upsetting or distressing dreams or thoughts, ideas, or notions. And I pray that the darts of the enemy don't find their mark in any of us. And I pray that none of us have any dreams or visions or thoughts, ideas, notions from any unclean spirits or the people that serve the unclean spirits. And I pray that we don't fall prey to the unclean spirits or the people that serve the unclean spirits that try to impersonate being an angel of light or being a minister of the gospel. And I pray that we have adequate money and then some. And I pray that we don't get discriminated against or picked on by any entity, governments, lawyers, businesses, credit bureaus, or family, employers, friends, relatives, anything like that. And I pray you would loose off of us any witchcraft, sorcery, curses, hexes, vexes, spells, and enchantments designed to attack us, our household, our animals and pets, or anything we own, possess, or control us at a hand to. I pray if we need work, we find good work. If we need customers or clients or sales for our businesses, if you have a business, we find that. I pray that our health would be improved. And I pray we would understand the Bible better. I pray that I could do better videos. And I pray for the peace of Yerushalayim, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that, even if it's a video as a believer. And just tell the Lord you agree, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Do all things in the name of Yeshua. So agree in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, or Yeshua the Messiah. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out, and I hope you got something out of this. Guys, this is such a good fit. It really looks like it's going to happen. Now, is there a chance that Trump punks out? Well, for Trump to punk out, what it means is he sends the ships home, he sends the planes home, and he just walks away. I don't see it happening. Do I see the Iranians submitting to Trump? No. By doing a blockade, whoever does it first is a way to basically win a war without having a war. But America can't do it first because Iran's in place. All Ayatollah Shmakamini has to do is snap his fingers, and that's it. Within an hour or two, they have it's closed. And when it's closed, the gold and everything goes up. Oh, the gold and silver. Let's see. And we'll not only do the gold and silver, let's do the oil. So what I'll do on the gold and silver is I'll go to Kitco and we'll get the current prices. Now, there might have been a higher high, but let's take a look at what's going on now. 117 on silver, 5,500? Wait. Yeah. What? 5514.70 on gold. My gosh. Let's go to get what the recent highs were. Were high prices what were high prices for gold, silver, crude oil in the last 24 hours? Gold hit 56.25 in the last 25. No, wait a minute. The price, it went as high as 50. No. Sorry. It's at 56.25 was the high. Silver went to $120.68, and crude oil 64.33, not so bad, and the Brent, which is always higher, that's European, $69.48. Wow. The trust in the governments and the government currencies is so low. That's when you see the gold and the silver go up like crazy like that. If this thing goes with the blockade, things going to get so crazy, you might be able to buy a house for a few gold coins, or maybe a handful of silver. I don't know. I'm starting to think that silver at 300 is not anything unusual. Silver at 500. I'm having trouble with silver at 1,000, but I could be me. Silver might hit 1,000. Could hit 1,000. Okay, so I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. Thanks, guys.